Empire.
Welcome to the latest edition of All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Happy New Year, Karl.
Yeah, happy New Year to you. It was a pretty good New Year for us. Nothing crazy going on. Just had a couple board games at the house and ended up coming down to the wire where I lost my wife Mandy's unbelievable dice rolling skills, and I felt shame going into the new year. But otherwise, it was pretty solid. What about you?
I spent New Year's with friends in New York. I was dog sitting up there. Went out to a nice dinner. It was not an eventful New Year's, but it was good. I hope everybody in your family is feeling okay, right?
Yeah, no, we're all good now. Everybody's symptom free. We've been still kind of keeping to ourselves for the most part. Got outside a little bit yesterday in the snow, but yeah, we're good. We're feeling healthy and hanging around. Were you in the city?
I was, yes.
What was the city like on New Year's? Was it buzzing? Could you feel it or not really? What was going on?
It was buzzing, and I actually went skating in Central Park and kind of almost got blocked going, trying to go to a bar afterward because all the streets were closed down. So you couldn't even like walk through to get to a good bar because they were blocking it off basically up to like 56th Street because of all the Times Square New Year's Eve stuff. And then you go down to the kind of Fidei where I was staying, and it was fine. Like people were out. It was kind of a festive crowd, maybe a little bit kind of dulled down by virus stuff and all that. But it was still kind of and the weather was great. It was 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and just it was cool to be in New York for New Year's for the first time.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I'm like, is that one of the things that I need to try at some point? Is be in New York City for New Year's? Although, like, I don't know, to us, I guess New Year's isn't. It's not really that big of an event. It's like not something I feel like I have to celebrate every year. But I don't know, kind of being in New York for New Year's seems like it's one of those things that you should experience if you have that opportunity. But I don't really know.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've always wanted to do Times Square once, but not really kind of like in the crowd. Like I would love to like rent a room or do a party that was overlooking kind of the Times Square and the Ball. That's the kind of like New Year's in New York that I would like to do eventually.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's actually something I've been watching a lot lately is the rollerblading group in New York City, and it looks unbelievable where they just like close off. I don't know if they close off streets, but they have a ton of people. It's like 40 or 50 people just rollerblading through the streets of New York City, and I'm like, there's a few things in that place I would really love to see happen, and it's watch the rollerbladers go by, and now obviously the Christmas tree at Rockefeller was one of the things I've always loved and was lucky to do. But the other one, is the New Year's Times Square. So I'm still up in the air, but if it's convenient, maybe I'll do it someday.
Yeah, and we're all hoping 2023 will be a little bit more of a normal New Year's than even this one was, which was kind of capped at 50,000 people or whatever in Times Square. But it feels like things are going to be improving soon. The Capitals are getting guys back off the COVID list. Nick Backstrom, TJ Oshie, Connor McMichael did not skate on Tuesday because of a non-COVID illness, but we spoke to John Carlson a little bit earlier just about kind of what it's like to get guys back, and here's what he had to say about returning to practice with most of the regular Capitals lineup.
You always want to be as healthy as possible, and whether that's real injuries or the other stuff, it's great to see guys. No one wants to be away from the guys. No one wants to be away from the rink, and it takes a toll on guys. I think a couple days here or there off the ice is not a big deal at all. But when you take a week, and some of these guys kind of didn't build in the break that we did have with it too, so there's a lot of time off for and the guys kind of directly before them, they were only back for not too long before they took another extended break away from the rink. So everyone's at different spots, I think, in terms of what they might need. So it's a good time to have the opportunity to be a little flexible in terms of, like guys aren't going to skate for an hour and a half when we're playing every other day. And this allows guys to do that.
And Carl, John talked about kind of the toll that it takes on guys being away from the rink. I know it's not virus related, but like when you were playing, you must have dealt with that too, right? With like if you're away with an injury or teammates away, that takes a mental toll as much as a physical toll, right?
Yeah, well, I was pretty lucky that I wasn't away for injury very often.
I'm knocking on wood. Yeah, you had a good career like that.
Yeah, and a couple times when I it was during the playoffs, and everybody's kind of in the same boat. You're always together, and you're still there for treatments and all that stuff. But during the season, when you're not traveling with the team, and there's things that are going on, you're in the trenches battling with everyone, and you're hurt, and you're not there, and you're not on the road or on the plane after, and you miss out on some of that talk. Like, it always felt, for me, I guess, a little bit strange when the guys would come back. It's like you miss them on the ice, but you miss them off the ice. Do they kind of almost, some of the guys, not all of them, there's some guys that are good that are just better at incorporating again right away, but sometimes it's almost like they're standing off to the side, just kind of taking things in, just to join the group again, which is weird because they may have been part of the team for years and years, but it's just, I don't know, it's just strange. You feel like I felt like they were missing out on stuff, and I didn't like that anyone on the team was missing out on anything. So yeah, it's nice that they can finally get healthy, and it's different too when you're healthy when you're injured with some sort of like bodily injury, because you can still be around the team, but when you're injured with an illness, with COVID, you can't even be around the guy. So it's just
Right.
that much tougher, and that's just a weird concept to grasp.
Yeah, and Martin Ferravari was back on the ice today, but he was looking winded. I mean, this is a guy who wasn't allowed to skate for a long period of time, and because he was in protocol since, I guess, Christmas Eve, really. But we're going to ask Greg Wyshynski about this later, but the Capitals lost another 3-on-3 overtime game the other day to the Devils. They're 0-7, 3-on-3 overtime, and I want to know, as a guy who probably would not have gotten much 3-on-3 time, what you think is the reason why the Capitals stink in these situations.
Oh man, it's tough. It's a little bit perplexing. I feel like they should be better in them, but I think the key to 3-on-3 is, well, obviously you need to create some sort of odd man situation.
Yes.
I think that's the number one thing, and you do that through some sort of transition, whether it's during a change or maybe a pick or a little bit of confusion in the D zone. And so it's speed comes into factor a lot as well, making sure you got guys out there that can scoot and that are, have some energy, I guess, too. And so I don't know if it's maybe needing a little bit more of a game plan going into that, like when you're on the D side and the team's coming at you, you try and, stay inside a little bit more and reserve some energy so that, guys aren't getting out of position, or it's on the offensive side trying to come up with a couple, it's almost like a face-off play, come up with a face-off play, but it's in the neutral zone instead, where you can find a way to get a little bit of separation, and then shooting off of a pass where you can get the goalie moving. And I don't know, maybe they are doing a lot of this stuff. I'm sure they're extremely well prepared, but then coming down to it and executing, and some of their players that are logging so many minutes during the game that maybe coming down to overtime, it's just a little bit of fatigue, mental fatigue as well as physical fatigue. I don't have the exact answer for it, but when it comes down to it, I feel like it has a little bit to do with game plan, being able to capitalize on a situation that opens up for just a second, and then a little bit of speed, and that I don't know, maybe that's an area where it's somewhat lacking. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a little bit of what you had to say about kind of guys being worn down over the course of a game, because the top forwards have had to play a lot of minutes in a lot of these games. I think a little of it's been bad luck, but I'm going to throw one stat at you. The Capitals are the worst team in the league at faceoffs, and most of the time I think faceoffs are very overrated. But in a situation like overtime, where you need to have possession of the puck, if you're then chasing it because you're losing all these opening draw faceoffs and the few faceoffs in overtime, and then all of a sudden you have to kind of play D, I think there's an extra fatigue factor there because they just can't win a faceoff at this point.
Absolutely. It's one of the stats I look at every single time when I check the sheet after the game is to see where the Caps are at on their face-offs. I've noticed that for the most part they're almost always under 50%. So I guess that leads into being one of the worst teams in the circle. And that was so when you said I probably didn't play much overtime. That was the only time that I would play was off the opening face-off in overtime. And if we had to play on D, I would go in there and play D. And yeah, that in overtime, it's all about possession. You do not want to give it away unless you have a clear scoring chance. That's like one of the rules right there. And so they'll hold on to a puck for a minute and a half, 2 minutes if they can, and get the other team will get a change in and try and get tired guys on the ice by running them around. And then if you don't have that possession, it's almost impossible to get it back, at least without giving up a pretty high quality scoring chance. And coaches always harp on it. Like you can plan until you're blue in the face, but if you don't get the puck to have a chance to go and execute that plan, like what's the point of planning? And they have guys that can be good in the face-off dot, but Nick hasn't been out there much, and Lars can be good too. And it's just maybe that'll change, but yeah, you need puck possession, and it's not just the centerman. So much of that relies on the wingers too. And when the centermen are having a tough go, like you rely heavily on your wingers to try and find a way. Just tie it up every single time, and let somebody else come in there and battle for you. But yeah, it's a bad feeling when you're not winning any draws. You're chasing the puck all night.
But look, we're worst in faceoffs in the league, but tied for the most points in the league with the New York Rangers. Next segment, we're going to talk with Greg Wyshynski, some Capital stuff, go around the league, talk some Olympics, maybe those red hot Rangers and the ice cold about to fire their coach, Edmonton Oilers. We'll be back on All's Caps. Welcome back to All's Caps. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Weiner with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner, and we are joined by ESPN's Greg Wyshynski, podcast expert. Happy New Year, Greg.
Happy New Year to you guys. I am an expert of many things, although hockey podcasts not necessarily one of them these days, but that's fine. I'm here on this one.
I didn't mean to rub salt in the wound, but I was in New York City the same time you were. You were able to enjoy some family time over New Year's?
Oh yeah, for sure. Me and the kiddo and the wife, I took the kid to go see the new Spider-Man movie, and now she is all in on Tom Holland. She asked me if the Holland Tunnel was named after Tom Holland. I said it predated him by a few years, and so she's all in on the Spider-Man thing, which I appreciate.
What would you guys get at the movie? What's your movie snack?
Oh God, so I'm a popcorn guy. I love popcorn. I love butter on the popcorn from the butter machine, and I love putting so much salt on top of that butter to the point where my heart starts to hurt. But the problem is, one, obviously that's no way to live life. And two, it is literally impossible to use the butter machine at the movie theater and not come home with stains on your pants that you need to do a 17-step program with OxyClean, vinegar, and all this other stuff to get the stains out of your pants. Like that butter oil is like it defeats any cleaning product you possibly have to de-stain your clothes. So there's a downside. But in the moment though, Karl, man, there's no beating over salted buttery popcorn.
That's I can agree with that. Have you ever done where you take like a bag of M&Ms or M&M peanuts, ripped it open and dumped it into the popcorn so you get a surprise every now and then?
Absolutely. It's kind of like the same vibe as dunking your fries in ice cream, but it also is the same vibe as like getting a really good bag of trail mix where you've got your salty and then your sweet. And so I'm not a huge fan of it. I'd like to keep my popcorn pristine and not sully it with any chocolate products. But if someone had a bag of popcorn with chocolate products thrown into it, I'm not going to, look a gift horse in the mouth. Of course I'm going to stick my hands in there.
You people are nuts. Karl, have your kids, are they into the Spider-Man? Have you taken them to the movies lately?
The last movie we took them to was the Paw Patrol movie, but I'm not sure. Our oldest son is kind of into Spider-Man. Actually, I guess the little guy is too, but I don't think he's not really at that movie age yet, like where I I can take him to the theater and feel comfortable that he's not going to ruin it for everybody else. Like a movie where people want to actually listen and hear what's going on. Like a kid's movie, you kind of expect it, but something where you need to pay attention. I don't think I'd risk bringing him to it just yet. We just watch him at home. Actually, we got some Nintendo Switches for Christmas, and they started playing those actually, and I was watching them play. I think it's still called Mario Kart, and they're getting pretty good. One of them finished first in the race, the other one finished second. I'm like, okay, I finally have some competition to play. So I think they're getting more into like the racing video games than they are to watching movies.
That's fantastic. That means they'll be really good at it by the time that they are in an off day during the Stanley Cup final and have to just stay in the hotel the entire day playing their teammates in Mario Kart.
Exactly. Yeah, those are the good days right there.
That'll be the next pandemic.
The Switch is fantastic. I have one too. I find I've grew up a Nintendo boy, so I've always been more apt to play the Nintendo consoles. But the Switch is cool because there's so many different levels of gameplay. Like you can have like a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old and know that you've got games for them, and then do the other more complicated Zelda kind of stuff. So I appreciate the Switch.
They don't have hockey games for the Switch though, right?
There was one that people. It was like almost like like an outdoor backyard rink game that people were excited about, but no, I mean that's the difference between your PlayStations and your Nintendos, right? Is like you're always going to have the better hockey games from the EA series and stuff.
Yeah, so when we get to hockey, I've got one Capitals question for you, Greg. And Carl and I were just talking about this. This team stinks at 3-on-3 overtime, and there's a lot of talented players on this team, but they're 0-7, lost to your New Jersey Devils in overtime the other day. Any theories on why this is happening?
Yeah, 3-on-3 is completely random. It's like, I mean, maybe the problem is that the Capitals try to play. Which is always going to be a death knell for any team in the 3-on-3. I wrote about this recently on ESPN, the idea that like the teams that are playing anti-hockey in the 3-on-3 are the ones that are in some cases thriving because they're sucking all the fun out of it and trying to, micromanage what happens in the 3-on-3. I mean, the good news is that, and this goes to any team that struggles in the 3-on-3 or loses a bunch of shootouts, is that it becomes completely immaterial when the games start mattering.
Sure. Of course.
Yeah, give me a team that's good at 5-on-5. Give me a team that can, kill a penalty when necessary, and I'll be happy. Especially if it's a team that like the Capitals that aren't necessarily suffering in the standings because they're leaving points on the table.
Yeah, and this is another reason I think Carl is I was just saying to somebody else that Ovechkin scoring all his goals on 5-on-5, and this team being good at 5-on-5 leads me to believe that there are good things coming playoff time.
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. Like Greg said there, if you're a playoff team and the points don't really matter as much, then it's not really an issue. But those teams where they do matter and they suck in overtime and they can't squeak out those few points, they might matter at the end. But yeah, in terms of the Caps, I mean, I don't think it's anything to really worry about right now. But if for some reason it comes down to the wire where they need a couple points here and there, then that is a nice way to make them up.
Yeah, and
well, also we should be happy that Ovechkin isn't scoring a bunch of goals in the 3-on-3, so we don't have a bunch of people whining about the quality of goals that he's scoring during the Gretzky chase.
Wait, can I whine about the empty net goals? Am I allowed to do that?
No, you're not allowed to whine about the empty net goals. This has been litigated for years. The reason why the empty net goals are fine by me, and he's obviously, I think he scored more than anybody else in NHL history. I think empty netters. At least if not the most, he was in the conversation for the most. You have to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but like you have to be good enough to be out there. Like you have to, if you're a liability, then you're not going to be out in that situation. So the idea that Ovechkin is out there, not only because of his scoring prowess and the ability to find the net in that situation, but also like he's good enough to be out there in that situation. He's not going to, it's not like you're all of a sudden playing 5-on-3. Because you've got a liability out there. If he's good enough to be out there, he's good enough to score an empty netter, and I think those goals are fine.
Well, I will say this: it's been debated over the years on who goes out there for those, and I think for the most part you put out your top defensive players just because you're trying to kill it. But there's also another way to look at it is where you put guys out there that that are good offensively and can protect the puck and rag the puck, and when given an opportunity to score, can score, because then you can put a nail in the coffin a lot sooner. But it is something that's interesting that he goes out very, very often on with an empty net situation, but doesn't usually go out for the penalty kill. So it's one of those things where you can kind of look at it either way. Now especially I'm on the side of him, getting him out there as much as possible to give him an opportunity to score. And I think as long as they are scoring more or winning more of those games than losing, when those guys that are considered your offensive guys out there in a 6-on-5 situation, then keep it going. But yes, you are correct. Typically, you have to be to a certain level to be out there in the final minutes.
And to be fair, Greg, I'm not actually whining about the goals. I just like arguing with you about something. So if it was just if I can argue about this, then that's fine.
Well, the great thing about the empty net situation, also, like, what was your points per 60 as a defensive defenseman during the empty net situation? Like how many points did you pick up just dumping the puck out and having Obi find it to find the empty netter?
No, it's true. I'd have to go and look at that stat, but I definitely got a few points in that situation, because it was all I had to do was just get the puck out across the blue line, and someone could skate into it, or a couple empty net goals myself. So yeah, it's a good point for sure. I like having those guys out there for that reason, as long as they're willing to also block the shot and get in the lane, do what's necessary. Then by all means, stick whoever you want out there, as long as they're willing to do the job.
Greg, I know things are changing on a weekly, daily, hourly basis, but are we both going to Beijing for the non-NHL Olympics?
That is correct. ESPN told me recently that I'm still going. Emily, I think, is hanging back to do TV coverage, but I'm going to be there, not only covering the hockey, but kind of doing what you're doing, which is kind of covering all facets of the Winter Games. I am going to be arriving after the All-Star game, so I'll be missing the
You lucky bastard.
I know, right? But I know. I get to go to Vegas and then go to Beijing afterwards. But then when I'm there, I'll be kind of covering everything and doing some TV hits and just being man about Beijing. Well, not really man about Beijing. You can't go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, we're stuck in a constant loop. It's like being in the Matrix and just seeing that cat all the time. Like you're just in a time loop in Beijing. You can't go anywhere. But it'll be fun. You and I are both Olympics nerds, so I know that's a good time for both of us.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to have the burrito out of the truck outside like we did in Sochi 8 years ago, but I'll see you at the rink and I'll see you at the bar, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it should be fun, right? I mean, the men's tournament, who the hell knows? Like, it wasn't exactly the greatest hockey in Pyeongchang, but the women's, I mean, like, we're going to get 2 USA-Canada games with the women, so it's just, that's all you care about. It's like one of the single greatest things in hockey, period, right now is the USA-Canada rivalry on the women's side.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm going to be doing a bunch of women's hockey over there too. Our buddy Eric Fair, who was on a guest on this podcast before, is going to be part of Team Canada. There's going to be some guys that people have heard of. Philippe Mallet, former Capitals great Philippe Mallet, possibly on Team Canada too. I guess Eric Stahl, Devin Dubnyk, a handful of people we know. David Quinn coaching the U.S. team. And I was there for Pyeongchang in 2018 too. It's not a best-on-best tournament, but as I keep talking to people about, it's still a damn Olympic gold medal.
It is, but I mean, part of the reason I'm going to Beijing, I'm actually fourth line right wing for Team USA.
Oh, okay. So you're the guy. Okay.
Yeah, they had to go down the list a little bit, so I don't want to get your hopes dashed, but yeah, I'm playing. So
Hey, at least you get that opportunity. I would take anything to go. I'd be a ninth defenseman just to go there and soak it all in. I want to watch the other sports though. That's like, of course, hockey is a focus, but I'd love to just go and see some of the other things going on there.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things too, that I'm not sure how much the players who are going this time are going to be able to do, because everyone's going to be kind of limited in their movements, and everyone's trying to not test positive. And I think, Karl, you would be there if anyone else on earth were coaching Team Canada.
I would send a resume in if anyone else was coaching it. Absolutely, I'd try.
The other thing too is that they're not going to get the typical Olympic experience of being able to go around Beijing and see the sites and the temples and the whole thing, but they will get a chance to be in the village. And in talking to athletes through the years, like that experience is pretty cool to bump into people from other sports from your country that you might have known through training, to bump into famous Olympians that are just there in the village going to the cafeteria or whatever. There's still going to be that experience, I think, for them, but everything else is just going to be so off the table, and it's going to be so regimented. It's going to be literally wake up in the village, hop on the transportation, go to the venue, then come back straight away, which sucks, but I mean that's just kind of the way of the world these days.
Yeah, and Carl and I had talked about the World Cup idea when Elliot Friedman was on last week. It has to come back, right? Like the NHL and the PA have to do a World Cup in 2024. Am I wrong?
Oh no, it's definitely going to come back because the players are going to drive that conversation too. Right. I mean, when you hear people like McDavid speaking up already about it, and other players kind of speaking up about it, I said this the other day, I would love to see a Venn diagram of the people who complain about there being bad teams in World Junior that get whacked by Canada, and the amount of people that want to see like Slovakia in the World Cup. Like it's the same thing for me. The people that are so against the Team Europe and the Team North America concept, and want to see like, because those teams are not going to be populated by NHL players, right? Or if they are, it's going to be a very thin roster. So I kind of love the format that they had in 2016 with those two sort of amalgamation teams, because, and I know the argument is we should have a best on best tournament. Well, that's fine, but it's still not the Olympics. And it'll never be the Olympics. Once that genie escaped the bottle in 1998, it's never getting stuff back in. So you might as well just try to have a fun hockey tournament. And I think the change I'd make is that Team USA and Team Canada should get their choice of the U23 players, if that's what we're doing again.
We're not doing that again. We're not doing that again.
Well,
stop.
I think you should. I know they're not. They're going to have a fake Olympic tournament. But like, I would be fine if they did it again, as long as those, like, every nation gets their pick of young players. So it's not a situation where you have a Canadian team that can't have Connor McDavid, or you have an American team that can't have Austin Matthews. Like, that was dumb.
Carl, where are you at on fake teams?
I'd rather not any fake teams, actually. I don't know. I think if they can get it as close to what the Olympics is going to be, then great. I don't think they need to, maybe not a nice way to put it, but water down the tournament with too many teams that don't have a chance to win, I guess is the honest truth. Yeah, and then that way the guys don't have to play so many extra games. It would be nice, but there's still so many good players from other countries that could make up one pretty strong team, but I don't think you need to have more than one team that's made up of multiple countries or young players or anything like that.
Could we put Czechoslovakia back together just for one tournament?
Well, I think that the happy medium would be to invite the Swiss, who have a good number of players, right? And I think they could be a pretty decent team, and then have like a Team Europe. Because here's the problem with this new World Cup. It's the same problem that we had in the old World Cup, which is, if you remember, Slovenia was in the Sochi games. Yep. Everybody was on the Kopitar tip. They made Team Europe ostensibly so Kopitar would have a place to play. Now we have an even bigger problem, which is that one of the top 3 players in the world is from Germany. That's the problem right now with this World Cup. One of the top 3 players.
Okay, so Philip Grubauer's the goalie for Germany. Okay, so I have Germany in the tournament.
You're going to put Germany in the tournament?
Of course.
Again, same problem you had before. So you're saying Switzerland and Germany. Okay, so what happens to the Slovakian players?
They're playing again. I'm putting them with the Czechs. I'm putting Czechoslovakia together for one tournament.
Okay, but my point is this, and I think Carl's kind of hitting the point, which is that you find another European team, and then you do an amalgamation team, so you can get Draisaitl in the tournament.
Like, but one team instead of the under 23. Like I was more okay with the Team Europe of guys who didn't have anywhere else to play than the Team North America.
Okay, that's fine, but you might have to do it again, which again will defy the rules of what people want from a quote unquote best on best tournament, because it won't look like the Olympics. But there's absolutely no reason why the NHL should create a tournament that leaves one of their top 3 stars on the outside looking in. They can't do it. It's stupid.
You know what that's called, though, Greg? It's called the NHL playoffs when the Oilers miss.
You're right.
Well, then you're gonna have 2 of the top 5 players in the world not in the playoffs.
But Wido, counterpoint to that, the last time we had a fake tournament was the COVID bubble playoffs, and they found a way to get 24 teams in there just to get marquee players and just to get marquee teams into the tournament. So it can be done.
Look, you can do whatever you want. Like, we're literally making up the rules as we go along here. The NHL can do whatever it really wants, and we're all gonna have fun, and we're gonna argue, and that's the fun of sports. At the end of the day, right?
Yeah, I'd say that's true. I think I like the idea of maybe just doing one throw together European team of all the extra countries that are around. They'll field a pretty decent team, I think, and then that way everybody's happy. But as long as we get the big I guess 4 or 5 countries in there, then I think overall people will be happy about it. So just find a way.
Good.
Here's the real question, though, guys. The real question is when do you hold this tournament? Because I think one of the problems with the 2016 version was holding it in September, where none of the guys were in shape yet, and the hockey was kind of bad. Do you shut down the season in February for the World Cup?
I would. Yeah, that'd be my choice. You could even do it. I mean, they have the World Juniors, so you don't really want to get in the way of that, split any sort of viewership. But I would say you need the guys to get into game shape. Because it just takes so, and this is kind of my theory on kind of McDavid, Draisaitl, somewhat of a slowdown right now, is that beginning of the season, it takes a lot of guys to get up to speed and to catch up with some of these younger guys, especially that are absolutely flying coming out of summer. And then once the season gets going, everybody starts to even out a little bit. So I think you got to give it at minimum a month before you can start a tournament like that, because you want everybody to be firing. You don't want just, the 23 and under team that's going to be going, and a lot of the older guys are still trying to warm up the engine.
I got an idea for you. What about doing it between Thanksgiving and Christmas of 2023? So you basically say, we're going to have a Thanksgiving break, we're going to have everybody go away, and then that Monday, camps can open, and you basically do the tournament where the finals on the 22nd or the 23rd, everybody gets off the next few days after, and we all come back for right after Christmas.
I like that idea a lot because you're holding the tournament at a time when nobody cares about the regular season.
Right.
Like, nobody cares.
Right.
TV doesn't care. Media doesn't care. Players don't really care.
The NFL is the only issue. The battling against the NFL during that time is the issue. But if you can avoid those big Sundays and still play a legitimate tournament, then you capture people's attention and you say, we're going to come back for 2024 and the playoff race is starting.
It's not the worst idea in the world, but you're right. It is kind of crowded though in December because now you're dealing not only with the NFL, but you're dealing with bowl games too.
Yeah, but no one, as we realized this year, no one cares about bowl games. You can cancel them and no one cares.
I mean, as a Maryland grad, I cared.
Well, congratulations on the as a fellow Maryland grad, very happy about the victory in the Pinstripe Bowl, I think it was, at Yankee Stadium against Virginia Tech. Greg Wyshynski is joining Karl Alsner and I here on All's Caps. When we come back, Karl's going to quiz Greg with Karl's stupid questions. Welcome back to All's Caps. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino, joined by former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner and ESPN hockey expert Greg Wyshynski. We've argued plenty, and now it's time for Karl to take the floor with Greg and Karl's stupid questions.
Yes. So I'm gonna mix up a couple here, maybe add a few. It's supposed to only be 6 questions, but there may be a couple little add-ons just because I got really excited on a few of them. So. Okay, I'm going to hit you. Well, first of all, just so you know the rules, you answer my questions truthfully, honestly. I'm judging you on your end. I'm going to give you a score at the end that matters a lot to me, but doesn't matter really to anybody else. So just have fun with it, and good luck to you because we have some stiff competition. First question.
Thank you very much. Yes.
First question here is, would you rather Chicago-style pizza or New York-style pizza? Which I think I know the answer, but got to do it.
Well, I mean, New York style pizza ultimately wins because I think the best slice of New York pizza is better than the best slice of Chicago style pizza. But, just sit around a table with your friends and, they bring over the big silver dish with the big clamps. Like they got to use the jaws of life to bring it over to you. Like there's something really nice about that too. But ultimately the best slice of New York pizza, which by the way is Joe's Pizza in the Village, pepperoni. cash only, is better than any Chicago style pizza.
And I'll let me add here. Chicago pizza is fantastic. It's just not pizza. It's more of a pie or a casserole than it is actual pizza. I'm gonna add a different definition, just like you do with hot dogs, Carl.
Interesting. Okay, we may have a new conversation right here. Well, then side note, okay, would you consider flatbread to be a pizza, or is flatbread in its own category?
Yeah, no, flatbread's a pizza. It's just dough covered with cheese and toppings. I mean, that definitely qualifies as a pizza. I mean, it's like a crustless pizza. We just had the flatbread from our good friends at Trader Joe's, which is it's got like mushrooms. It has like truffles or some such on it. It's really tasty, and it's good for like if you don't want to cook. But it's definitely still a pizza. I mean, you put it in the oven, crust cooks up, cheese melts, pizza.
Yeah, that counts.
Agreed. Okay, next question here. If you're going to be pulling an all-nighter, what's going to help you get through that? Is it loud music? Is it caffeine? What's going to be your secret weapon?
I drink so much coffee during the day that it is merely there to keep me at a level of energy. It is no longer something that would turbo boost me. For that, I would need like a double espresso, but I do have a very specific answer to your question, which is a 12-ounce, not sugar-free, but less sugar Red Bull. You know,
Sweet.
The one, the light blue can versus the dark blue, but not the black one that's like no sugar, like the one in between. But you're basically like your Diet Coke between Coke Zero and regular Coke. That Red Bull, 12 ounces, and I drink it before live shows that we do. I drink it before going on television. It's like my turbo boost of choice, and it gets me to where I need to go.
That is exactly what I would say too. That's a perfect answer. That's what I would have whenever I had a game where I just felt like I just didn't quite have enough. I'd always go for one of those Red Bulls. I know exactly the label, so hell of an answer. Let me just say that right there. Great job. All right, next one here. What's your favorite childhood TV show?
Favorite childhood TV show? Well, I mean, there's different phases of childhood, right? So I would say as a younger kid, like coming home, watching cartoons kind of deal, I was in that sort of like Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe kind of cartoon thing. But I'll go a little bit further than that and say, if we're talking like animated shows on like TV in the afternoon, probably Batman the Animated Series would be that. But my favorite show as a kid remained my favorite show as an adult, which was Mystery Science Theater 3000, where the dude and the two robot puppets were forced to watch bad movies and make jokes about them. So either of those answers would be applicable.
I was going to ask you a follow-up, and if there was some sort of jingle, like opening jingle to any of those, but I don't know any of them. So if there is, and you can sing it, you would get bonus points.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Batman one's easy because it was just the Danny Elfman music from the 1989 Batman film that and then Mystery Science Theater had a song with lyrics, but I'm not going to sing that because it'd be lost on you. You didn't watch the show.
But we may have a couple of viewers that know it.
In the not too distant future, next Sunday AD, there was a guy named Joel, not too different from you or me. And then it goes on from there to talk about how he's stuck on a spaceship watching bad movies with his robot friends. It's also my avatar on Twitter, which has led to years of hilarity where people think that I'm a tall, balding, blonde guy with two puppets. And then it's jarring when they meet me in real life, or it's funny when they're like, I say something about like, hey, the Seattle Kraken's cup chances are getting thin, and they're like, yeah, like your hairline. I'm like, that's not me, but it's fine.
Yeah, that's so good. Oh man, okay, let's move on. Do you have a word that you misspell, or is there a word that you really dislike?
I misspell every word. I'm a complete slave to spell check. Like I feel like there are certain things technology-wise that we should just embrace and know that there's absolutely no reason to have to spell like reminiscence correctly. You just throw all the letters, you get as close as you can, and you let the computer fix it for you.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah. Is there a word that I don't like? No, I don't think there's words I don't like. I think there's like phrases I don't like, and they're phrases that come in and out of the zeitgeist. One that's I'm dealing with right now, and that it's unfortunately crept into my vernacular, is when something is of a piece to something, like like when you're like the social network is of a piece of Sorkin's other work.
I've never used that in my life, so
But you've heard it, right? Like it's part
not
of
until
I don't
just
know where
now.
it came from. I don't know where it came from. Carl, you may not know this. My least favorite hockey word is celly. It's like baby talk, and I never liked the word. I like celebration, sick celly, stupid baby talk, Letterkenny words.
That was actually my next question, was what hockey phrase or word you didn't like. So you already got on top of that. Wino, do you have a word that you really dislike?
I don't know if there's a word I really dislike. There's just a lot of phrases that hockey players say that are just a waste of time. And it's just verbal diarrhea. And I think the word that is used too often is obviously. And even if I say it myself, I hate myself for how many times I would say obviously. And as I'm transcribing, which I can do faster than anyone else on earth, other than maybe Mike McIntyre in Winnipeg, everyone says obviously. And I'm like, stop saying obviously. It's a word that you almost never need.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And everybody, it's like anytime you listen to yourself, whether it's talking on the podcast or if I've done an interview, I always go back and I'm like, why did you say that word? You just said it 10 seconds before, and you just said it a minute before that. You sound so stupid. But
you were never a problem though. You were never the problem of verbal diarrhea. You were always like, I don't want to pump your tires too much. You were always a thoughtful interview who you would say what you're actually thinking, almost to your own detriment, which is a good thing for us.
Yeah, you were incredible. Like you're in the pantheon of best Caps interviews. Hall of Fame of like the most interesting and introspective guys that have ever been on that team, for sure.
Just so you know, Greg, there is no prize for this, so you don't have to continue to butter me up just to earn more points.
Well, I mean, it's the truth though. Like, who else was on that list, Wino? Like Brooks Lake at one point.
Matt Hendricks. Matt Hendricks for sure.
Hendricks for sure. Mike Green, depending on the day.
and look, and Evgeny Kuznetsov, depending on the day, will give you great stuff.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely.
Very true. Okay, last one here, since you already got that last one. Is there anything that you're randomly an overachiever at, or something that you I don't know, you feel like you've got like a weird amount of skill that's somewhat random?
Yeah, making English muffin breakfast sandwiches. I'm married to a really good cook. Ruby can whip up a dinner, and she's like one of these people that can do it without a recipe and just like taste shit, and like she can kind of just like whip it together and stuff. And I don't have that skill. I can follow a recipe and do okay. But that said, I have the ability to perfectly fold an egg into the shape it needs to be in order to fit on an English muffin without much of it hanging off the sides and still make it really fluffy and good. I'm really good at it. And I'm really good at knowing how long the cheese has to be on top of it to get that melty sausage McMuffin with egg meltiness. I'm good at knowing exactly how much bacon needs to be on the English muffin in order to not overload it. And I'm really good at condiments too. I'm a ketchup guy. Not everybody is, but if you've got some Cholula hot sauce or like some Chipotle mayo, I can whip you up a good alternative to ketchup breakfast sandwich. That's like my probably hidden skill, very hidden, because I mean, who else am I cooking for if not my wife or my kid?
I'm coming over now. Next time I visit New York, you're making me one of these.
But I'm really good at it. It's definitely like the thing that I would say is like a hidden talent.
That's unbelievable. I mean, it's funny when you talk about following a recipe. I feel like I can follow a recipe, but the other day I threw vanilla milk in our kids' mac and cheese and turned it into vanilla mac and cheese. Not the worst thing I've ever tasted, but it's simple. You can't screw up mac and cheese, but I found a way. So I
I
guess
like
I'm not as good
cooking.
at following a recipe.
I like cooking and I like following a recipe. It's something that kind of like 8 out of 9 times it'll relax me. And then that 9th time when something's gone awry, I've overcooked something, and I have a complete immature freak out about ruining life for the people that I love, and squandering ingredients. I think, which is also like taking me back to my middle class upbringing in New Jersey, where resources are scarce, so you don't want to overcook something that cost a lot of money, like fish or scallops or something. So that 9th time out of the times of making a recipe is a stressful situation.
Well, I would go ahead and say that was pretty solid answering. Just quick tally here in my head since I'm driving. Yeah, I think you, with all the bonus points that you were able to accumulate there, you're at 274 points, which absolutely smashes everybody else that we've had so far. So
Wow.
Very, very impressive. That's unbelievable.
That's so cool. I appreciate that. Thank you for the insightful questions. I know that when it comes playoff time, bonus points don't matter. So I know I'm going to have to be solid at 5-on-5, but I think I've had a really strong showing here.
Yeah, good play. You just set the bar for everybody. If anyone who wants to ever do good at this game, I'm going to refer them to this episode so they can try.
The first place, Greg Wyshynski, the tied for first place Washington Capitals. Greg, thank you very much for joining us on All's Caps.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, and continued success. And don't give up on that Olympic dream, Carl. There's still time.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Thanks everybody for joining us. And Carl and I will talk to you next week on All's Caps.